it's really important for me to give every client space to be who they are. I am not trying to mold clients into a certain aesthetic. I'm not trying to mold them into a certain personality or to have a certain experience. I want to give them space to be who they are. By the end of the project, they are so emotionally invested in their own home, and their whole perspective on design has changed.
Meg Lavalette is the founder and principal of Lava Interiors, a high-end residential interior design firm located in the heart of Manhattan. Meg pulls the curtain back a bit and offers us a behind-the-scenes look at her design process from first kickoff meeting to completion. What really intrigued me was her process of storytelling and how that translates to the final design. It all begins with an interactive inspiration meeting led by the client, who then she takes on shopping trips throughout multiple showrooms in New York City. For those of us not in the industry, this is certainly not the norm, but after talking with Meg, perhaps it should be. Later in our conversation, Meg shares about a special renovation project that she began during the pandemic. She openly shares about her recovery from severe depression, and I couldn't help but feel a beautiful parallel between the renovation of this historic building and that of her own life. I found the symbolism to be a beautiful reminder that our environments and how we express through them creatively has such a power to heal. Lava Atelier is a seasonal storefront on Main Street in the charming historic village of Franklin, New York. Directly above the shop is Lava Loft, a 2-bedroom accommodation available through Airbnb. Lava Interiors was named First Dibs Designers to Watch in 2023 and has been featured in Architectural Digest, House Beautiful, Brownstoner, Wall Street Journal, and many more. Please enjoy my conversation with Meg Lavalette. I'm so excited to catch up. It has to be a few years now since we last connected.
We were very much in COVID. We were in lockdown COVID.
Yeah, we certainly were. So I'm excited to catch up more with you today. And the podcast has really been kind of interesting in how it came to be. It was kind of this intuitive moment. Like I'd always say it in joking with certain friends or colleagues, like, we should start a podcast, ha ha. And then it was just one day, like, I'm going to do this. And it's just been kind of unfolding in ways that I really didn't expect, but in really cool ways. So it's kind of like my play project, which is nice to have.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great to connect with other people.
It is. It's like, it's not really about me being the expert here. It's really about, I want to learn too. So like meeting other people and how people do things. So I'm excited to catch up with you and see what's happening in your world. So what's going on with you? Fill me in on all the things.
And this is exciting because we haven't spoken for the past 2 years. So it's nice to speak live and kind of share everything that's going on in real time because so much has changed. When we spoke, we were in the thick of lockdown. And as we all know, the interior design industry was going through the most expansive period in the history of the industry. Architecture, interior design, construction, and with all the uncertainty around us as well, it was such a strange period where we were trying to get our footing, I think, as business owners, while trying to figure out how to communicate all the changes to our clients where we didn't even necessarily know what was around the corner during this time of uncertainty. And I can speak for myself when I say that the amount of learning that took place during COVID was incredible. It was so challenging during those times, but I think that we all had a chance to really be with ourselves and be with the people that we share our home, our habitat with, and have that opportunity to explore and redefine what works for us. And it's been very sobering to be in my own house when I've been focused on my clients' houses to figure out how I want to function and how I want to live on a day-to-day basis, because I think our homes need to be the place where we restore ourselves, where we find that peace and calm. And what's so interesting about the pandemic is that I developed a new way to approach projects with clients because I realized how deeply personal our home environments are. And I worked for 5 other design firms before opening my own, I guess it's 7 years ago at this point. And I never saw the clients leading in how they wanted their home to truly look and feel, and even selecting the first pieces of furniture and fabrics, because our homes, I think, should be a direct and personal reflection of who we are. So I've completely remodeled my interior design firm in order to make my clients' homes very personalized and reflective of who they are aesthetically and how they function.
I love that. So take me through that process just a little bit. Like you mentioned, you actually let them lead with some of the material selection, or are you just kind of watching them and seeing what they're drawn to? In my process, I'm bringing this intuitive practice and I'm really integrating that into my process with my clients. So I'm curious, like, how are you drawing clients to their own selections?
So when we start a project, I ask my clients to come into our design studio, which is in the heart of New York City in Manhattan in the neighborhood of Flatiron. And it's where we keep all of our samples. So we have fabric samples and stone samples and metal samples, and everything that you would need is in that design studio. And I asked them to do homework before. So they have this meeting as an opportunity to bring in all of their inspiration images. This helps me understand who they are and what they're responding to. And it could be images that they like. It could be images where they like a couple of things in it. It could be a vibe. It could be images that they really do not like what's going on there, visually speaking. But I want them to start communicating to me what visually interests them and is not interesting to them so I can get to know who they are. So they have that homework assignment. And it's really important that we have this methodical process because that is what guides us from conception through completion. These projects are beasts. And if we explore the client's imagery after we've started selecting product, we have to start from scratch. So that's why I've developed this system. So they come into our office, we review the images. We talk about that a little bit before because what I do is I handpick a box of fabrics and materials for them before that meeting that they get to explore. I want them to see stuff. I want them to touch stuff. I want them to know the difference between a mohair and a cotton velvet. Um, I want them to understand what double rub count is and why we're looking for a higher count on their main piece of upholstery. So it's this time to educate them while also learning about what they are responding to both positively and negatively. And they have free reign. They can go through all of our sample boxes during that meeting. I just ask that they share what's going on in their minds and what they're sensing, because that is what helps me understand who they are. And while we're going through those samples, I start to pin them up. As they're occupied going through these fabrics, I start to develop this story on our pinup board in the design studio. So we start to begin the storytelling process of who they are and how they want to live right there in that first meeting. And it's very hands on, it's very interactive. And they start to emotionally respond to the process right out of the gate. And it's really wonderful to see people who maybe, usually with couples, there's one person who's really excited about the process, and the other one is like, I just want it to be over with. But it's really fun, I think, when you can experience some type of like Angora fabric, like when you feel that and you touch the quality of it, there's something that people will start to respond to. And it's almost like they're getting in tune with like what their likes are. And so it's really fun to see that process unfold in that first meeting. And once we have that meeting, we start to get a really good sense of who they are individually. And it's like a Venn diagram. If we have a couple, it's like, where are they overlapping in areas? And those materials where they're overlapping is where I start the design development. And it's inspiration for me when I'm starting out this creative process. So that's in our design studio. And the next meeting that we have, we take them on a shopping trip throughout New York City. We just did one this past week, 2 days ago. We took a couple around. We get to know them in that first design meeting, what fabrics they like, what styles, what wood tones they're into. Some people really like a dark, cool tone wood. Some people like a vibrant mid-tone caramel color. So all of those preferences we're gathering. And then we develop a curated list of showrooms that we want to bring them to. And we have a really long list of vendors that we work with just in New York City. And we have vendors around the world, but just in New York City. So we are editing down a list of maybe 10 to 12 showrooms. And we plan a day and we sequence it, starting usually from uptown and head downtown. And the clients get to sit in a sofa and I guide them through telling me what they like about that sofa. There's a difference between a loose seat cushion and a fully upholstered tight seat cushion or seat back, and they all sit differently. So I am teaching them the design language as I'm learning about them, because if I'm teaching them that design language, it helps them communicate what they're experiencing and what they want better to me. So when I turn around in a few weeks during our first design presentations, I am reflecting back to them who they are, but in a thoughtful way where the design is really reflective of them.
That's really interesting because I think as the industry as a whole, taking clients to showroom is kind of like unheard of.
I know.
And I struggle with that myself. And so kudos to you for just like going against the grain and be like, no, like I need to do it this way because otherwise this project's going to turn upside down on me. I love that you're showing them, they're sitting in it, you're engaging all of their senses with, through texture and feeling and seeing. I think that's really important. I think it encapsulates the whole experience. And I think I think it gets clients really excited about their own project. Because again, you have that usually if it's a couple, one of them, it's just not into it. But I'm curious, as you find, as you start to go through this creative process with them, that they start to kind of enjoy it a little bit?
Of course.
Yeah, right? How could you not?
I have flipped every client who is like not really into it. It's really important for me to give every client space to be who they are. I am not trying to mold clients into a certain aesthetic. I'm not trying to mold them into a certain personality or to have a certain experience. I want to give them space to be who they are. And so some clients get overwhelmed by the construction aspect, which I totally understand because that portion of the scope can be a beast. Some people get overwhelmed by furniture plans and picking out the furniture. Others get overwhelmed by the smalls, like the accessories. So I'm learning about what they can respond positively to and kind of playing up to that because I want to make sure that they're comfortable throughout the entire process. And I have seen every client that I do this with by the end of the project, they are so emotionally invested in their own home and their whole perspective on design has changed. And the reason why I developed this process is because during the pandemic, first of all, I love these Zoom meetings and I love that we can work remotely for the vast majority of what we do on a day-to-day basis. It makes me feel like I can be more efficient, I can be more productive. But on the flip side, there are aspects of this process where we need to connect more. And so I wanted to connect more with my clients on educating them what the products are, what the different levels. You could get a sofa from IKEA for $1,000. And on the flip side, we could do a custom sofa that costs $40,000. There is a giant range of what product is out there. And unless you put your clients in front of that product, they don't truly know what the difference is. I talk about 8-way tying springs in a sofa and why that construction is more durable than just the foam and what you get at West Elm and CB2. And I educate them, and then I let them tell me what they want to invest in, because these projects are so expensive. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of cost. Some clients want to invest in beautiful antique rugs. Some clients say, I have 5 dogs. I don't want to invest in beautiful antique rugs. I want to invest in an amazing sofa that's going to be like the Rolls Royce of sofas because I'm going to spend all my time there. So it's about educating our clients. And in that education, I think you need to take them out in person to see and touch and experience things.
Yeah, you kind of have to pull the curtain back a little bit. I think that our industry is elusive already.
Yes.
And even when you begin a project, I mean, clients just really have no clue the amount of work it is. Some do, and that's why they hire someone like us. But even those who do know, they're still, I find, overwhelmed with the selections that need to be made. And what's great is you're in a space where you could do that. You have multiple showrooms. I don't really, me being in Pittsburgh's not like a huge market for that. We don't have like a design district or anything like that. So that's a really big challenge for me here.
Well, I have to say, when I worked with Jeffrey Billhuber, when a client would want to go shopping, because some clients want to go shopping and some don't. And by the way, it's mandatory with me. I tell my clients they have to go shopping because unless you've gone shopping, you don't know what you're missing. And when you go out, then you're more engaged. So when I worked for Jeffrey Billhuber, if his client wanted to go shopping, he had a brilliant idea. He made a master list of all of the vendors, antique, new production, whatever, throughout Manhattan, and had it organized by, uptown, midtown, downtown, by order of the street, so organized. And he would go into that list and highlight what vendors he wanted to take that particular client to. So I got that idea from Jeffrey. And what I realized during the pandemic is that we really need that experience. And we really need to go out there and have that education session of what the options are. And so that's why I do require my clients to go on that shopping trip. And what's so funny is that at this point, I just have one shopping trip at the beginning. And most of my clients ask for a second, a third, or a fourth at this point because they have so much fun learning. They really like knowing what they're going to get, and they like experiencing things. And I think the type of client that usually comes to work with me is a curious person who wants to learn and wants to grow and wants to live well and live better than what they're experiencing at the point when they come to me.
Well, you mentioned you don't try to mold your clients into a certain style or aesthetic, but I have to say, like, your gift and talent of mixing vintage and antique with modern function is so tasteful. You do it so beautifully, honestly. I mean, I've never physically been in any space you've designed, but when I look through your portfolio, I see a lot of like peace, tranquility, harmony, balance, just all these juicy words that I could literally feel myself in that space. So I'm curious, I'm sure it's a little bit of both, but is that more of your natural creative abilities or do you have this intentional conversation with clients about how they want to feel in their space? Because all those words that like I just used are very descriptive of how a space could feel. Do you have a conversation around how clients want their spaces to feel?
Yes. And I don't have like a list of questions for them in those initial meetings because I let those meetings organically flow as we're talking about quality of fabrics and we're talking about furniture when we're out. So it happens just kind of intuitively and naturally with the clients. But one thing that I like to kind of suss out from them is not only how they want to feel in each space, because I think that rooms serve different purposes for us. So we need to understand what that programming is at the very beginning, because that can determine the furniture plan, the amount of stuff in a space. Do you want it to feel more minimal? Do you want it to feel more maximalist? But I also want to know what they find associated with that feeling. So here's an example. If someone, I say, okay, for your main bedroom, what do you want your bedroom to feel like? And maybe intuitively, we all would say calm and peaceful. But some people say energetic and vibrant and fun. So I think that we can't necessarily assume that everyone wants a peaceful bedroom. So that's step number one. Because again, I want these spaces to be completely personalized and customized to my clients. And where they might not understand how to put the details together, they can at least communicate these overarching or very generalized ideas. So once they tell me that they want their space to feel peaceful or vibrant, then I say, well, what colors or what patterns or what textures evoke that feeling for you? So someone might think that blues are peaceful. I hear that a lot. But someone might also think that a wide variety of pastels or all neutrals or all grays bring that sense, that feeling for them. So delving in deeper and asking questions instead of just scratching below the surface, really going into it and having these conversations with my clients is what helps me distill their personalities into the spaces. And look, we just had this shopping trip on Wednesday. We spent 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever it was with our clients. So not only the time when we're in the showrooms and learning about how does that sofa feel? It's hitting the back of your knee. Do you want it to be deeper? Do you want it to be shorter? How do the back cushions feel? Beyond that, it's our time when we're taking the Uber from showroom A to showroom B. We're learning more about them and I'm asking them about, what they're into. And we're just having natural conversations that helps me understand who they are along the way.
Yeah, always listening. I find
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, especially at the beginning. And I tell my clients at the beginning, I'm doing so much listening, and it's your turn to really share with me who you are because I want to get to know you and how you want to live. Because in a few weeks, the tables are going to be turned and I'm going to be in the driver's seat presenting stuff to you. So this is the time that we have together for me to understand who you are and what you respond to and how you want to live.
I love that you use the bedroom example. I actually just had this happen to me with a client. So it was a husband and wife, and they actually split bedrooms just because it's more comfortable that way. And the husband was like, I want my room to just feel like, I just want to feel good in here. And I took that as, okay, we're just going to, exactly what you said, peaceful and calm. And that's the vibe I got when I walked in there. But then he showed me an inspiration photo, and it was like this rich plum,
Yeah.
saturated in lacquer, like picture of a bar in it. And he was like, this is kind of what I want for my bedroom. And I was like, whoa, that is totally opposite ends of this. So yeah, you're right. I mean, everybody has a different idea of what their space is to them. And the bedroom is definitely a great example of that.
It is. And I have to say, what happened when I first started my firm is that I realized at the 5 design firms that I was at prior, where I gained the most incredible experience. I mean, I started at Robert Stern Architects, which is a ginormous architecture firm. It also has an interiors department. And I think they're up to 460 employees. And then I went to Jeffrey Billhuber's office, and I think he had 9 employees at the time, super high in residential, super customized, and very much set in traditional high society. kind of clientele. And then I go to Caraman's office, which is like cool and chic and contemporary and neutrals and a little edgy, and getting all these different experiences at different firms before opening my own. I realized that these design firms had a certain aesthetic that they were giving to their clients. But what I didn't find out there, and I'm sure people were doing it, I just didn't see it and I wasn't exposed to it, is that I wasn't seeing design firms learning about their clients first and then deciding what the aesthetic would be. If you were at a certain design firm, it was always assumed that, there would be a traditional undercurrent to it or a contemporary undercurrent to it. I just don't see that as the way that I want to operate. I want to learn about my clients. I'm so open and I love so many different types of people. So I want to learn about who that character is that I am speaking to and create an environment for that specific person instead of coming in with preconceived notions. And I think that's where kind of the collected aesthetic that I guess I'm starting to develop in my portfolio is coming from, because I'm happy to throw in a little like antique mirror that has that beautiful antique glass and some carvings on it next to a super clean piece of upholstery. I think that dialogue between objects is really interesting, but some clients don't understand vintage or antique pieces and patina as much as others. So I'll pull back in those areas, and that's fine. And some really love that kind of eclectic feel. And so I'll push more in with that client. But it's really getting to know who your client is at the get go and letting them have that space to be who they are. That said, we have a very formalized process. So we have a series of checks and balances that happen along the way. And it even starts with communication. And I said this to our new clients last week because they were sharing something, a board with me that they made through Pinterest, but I didn't get an email about it. And so it got lost in all the notifications that we get on social media. And so I have these parameters that help these projects flow better from start to finish. So I have things like we only communicate through emails and scheduled calls. The reason why we say this is because emails, we can document things. And I tell my clients, you can email me at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning because something came up, and that is fine. But I cannot do texting because it's my personal phone and I need to shut off so I don't start spinning myself in circles and feel like I'm always on. But also, we can't document things properly if people are texting us information. And then it doesn't keep the team looped in. And so it starts a series of things that create disorganization. And when I'm disorganized, I'm not creative. I've learned that about myself a long time ago. So I need to be organized and I need to have systems and processes in place. So I would say email's best way, but scheduled calls, I want to be at my desk in front of a notepad, taking notes of what my client is saying to me. I don't want them to call me when I'm on a construction site and we're dealing with an issue of the light being in the wrong place and the rug got damaged. Like, I'm not going to be focused on that client if I'm dealing with something else. And then we have set work hours. We're a professional, industry. And I think that's something that a lot of designers struggle with is we're seen as like a friend who's helping them shop. No, we have a design studio and we operate regular weekday hours, 9 to 6, Monday through Friday. We observe weekends and holidays. We have families. We have friends. We have lives outside. And guess what? Our vendors have those same hours, and the other people in our industry have those same hours. So we are just sticking with what works for everyone else too. We need to have those boundaries. So every Friday, our clients get a weekly status report. The weekly status report is organized by room, by item, if we need to communicate anything. We have an overall tab at the top too. And at the very top, we have a scheduling link where the client can book time with us on Monday afternoons after they've had the weekend to be at home and read our Friday weekly status report. And if you have any questions that have come up that are not answered or something else you want to speak to us about, you can book time on Monday afternoon to speak with us. So Mondays in the morning, we have our internal weekly staff meeting where we're figuring out what fires we need to put out, where our hours are going to be allocated, what the logistics are. Do I need to go to Connecticut to a site visit? And do I need to be in the design studio? Do I need to go see vendors? That Monday morning is for us internally. I'm getting up to speed with emails because I'm not responding to emails over the weekend anymore. We're having that weekly meeting to project our hours, to make sure that we're not overspending hours on any projects too. And then that Monday afternoon is for our clients. So they can check in with us and they always have access to us to ask any questions. And those couple of things right there have kept us sane and organized and forward momentum and our clients so happy. They know what to expect. And I think that that helps the clients relax a bit. At the very beginning of a project, I think clients can be either anxious or so excited, or there's a lot of anticipation. And once they start to get into the routine with us, it kind of just settles everything down a little bit. And you realize, okay, I boarded the train and we're going to ride this journey together and we know what's coming up ahead of us. And it just makes for a smooth process and happy clients.
I totally can appreciate the need for being organized. And for so long, I ran my business disorganized. But like you, I also have the Friday follow up. It's kind of that end of the week, regardless if nothing's even moving, if we're just like in procurement phase and things are just sitting around waiting to be delivered. I think that they like just knowing once a week, has anything changed? If not, great, I can go about my weekend. But I love the Monday afternoon dedicated for client calls. That's brilliant. I think I might have to steal that one. That's
Yes.
so good because, especially like you said, they get the weekend to think about it and things come up. It's probably the first time all week that they've connected with their partner or whomever to like actually talk about it. So that's a really good one. I love that.
Yep. Because I think a lot of clients are so busy during the week. They have work, they have kids, they have a million things going, and then they're at home on the weekend. And if you're in the middle of construction, it's like, well, why didn't this light get installed this past week? I thought it was going to be installed. And maybe it says a little something on the weekly status report that, but they want to know in more depth why it didn't get installed. And one thing about that weekly status report is that we're also acting as the project manager and the point person for the contractors. Because I do find that a lot of contractors are maybe not communicating in this standardized approach to clients, and they are there on site, and the house could be in a total state of disarray and a mess, and they go into the weekend and the client doesn't know what's going on. So we touch base with even our contractors on Thursday afternoon or Friday morning to understand what's going on in their world and put that on the weekly status report so the clients really have this comprehensive view of their project. It's not just the decorative stuff, it's everything. We are involved in the entire process. So it's helpful to have that main piece of communication for them so they understand what's going on in their own home.
Yeah. I mean, we could probably go on and on about processes for sure, but I do find that not only does it keep us organized, but there is such an appreciation from the clients to just know what's going on. And it's something they can look forward to at least weekly because
Yes.
all these questions do come up. And I love that you're forward with it about communication. That's a huge one because I still am battling that a little bit in my business too, getting text messages from clients. And that's my own fault, just not pushing for that a little bit more.
Okay, ready for this? I put it in my agreement that communication is done through email and scheduled calls. Communication via text and social media is prohibited.
Wow.
That is a line in my agreement. It's a hard boundary
Mhm.
I don't want you to send me a message on Instagram that goes into that general folder because we're not friends on Instagram. And then I don't see it. And we do this big, giant design presentation. You say, well, I sent you a message that I really don't like the color blue. And yet the entire room is blue, whatever it is. I don't want to miss stuff. And so outlining specifically what those boundaries are, I think that we're people pleasers and we just want people to feel great in their home. But if we don't tell clients how we work best, they're not going to know. And it's not being rude or forward by telling them how we work best. It's actually creating a mutually respectful relationship. So they understand how to best respect us and the work that we're doing for them.
As you're saying people pleasing, I'm sitting here shaking my head. Yes, for sure. That is something that I have realized, acknowledged about myself. And so I'm working on that.
Mhm. It's tricky.
It
It's really
is.
tricky.
It
There have been
is.
many sleepless nights, and I was very afraid of putting these boundaries in place. And I think it can take clients off guard. And I tell them it's not because I don't want to hear from you, it's that the project will become a runaway train if we don't have these guidelines in place. It's for everyone's best interest. But you have to know how you work best as a business owner. And that takes years of experience, a lot of fails, a lot of stressful situations. And then you realize, you know what? This isn't working for me. So, what is going to work for me? And how do I communicate that to my client? And I put it in the agreement and I read the agreement word for word with the client at the very beginning before I give them the opportunity to sign. I tell them everything of how the process is going to lay out, from our hourly fee. If it's a flat fee, this part is flat fee, this part is hourly. We talk money. Money's a hard conversation to have, right? So we have to get comfortable talking money, because if we're not comfortable talking money, how are we going to have a successful project with our clients? So we need to lead that. We are the professionals in the room and we need to lead those conversations.
100%. It's really making me evaluate my own processes. So you're inspiring me right now to
Right.
go back
Well,
to see and what do I need to change or what do I need to fix?
well, I think that we assign emotions to things that don't need to be emotional.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't do well with text, period. Like, if you
Mhm.
want something to go wrong, then you can text me.
Yeah.
It's not going to go well if you text me. But to know, like, I don't operate well like that. And to be able to have the confidence to say that. I mean, I didn't have that confidence at first. When you're starting your own business, you want any client that you can get. You don't want any project to go horribly wrong. You want to retain every client, even if, once in a while you have a bad apple. But I need to, in order for my business to not just stay afloat, but to flourish and to be profitable. And I want to pay myself well, and I want to pay my employees well, because that's how you're going to retain good employees too. It's this whole trickle down. It comes from years of fails.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can certainly look back retrospectively and see things that I've integrated because of failures, but there's still like, I feel like there's always a work in progress. It's still always just learning from each and every project.
Yeah, but you're experienced enough to know that every day you're going to learn something new. And like, once you get to the point where you realize like it's not going to be smooth the entire
Right.
time, things are going to go sideways, and you're always going to be learning something new. Always. I go into these shopping trips with clients and vendors are teaching me stuff as we're sitting there having conversations.
Yeah.
But the more you're in it, the more you realize how much you don't know. And that's okay. To be able to feel that confident and self assured that you're okay with not knowing everything and that you are still learning, that opens up the door to being more curious, to exploring more, to being more creative. So if we operate from that, from feeling insecure, then it's not going to work for yourself or for your clients or for the project. But to operate from that perspective of confidently not knowing everything, I think that leaves the door open for so much more.
Yeah. All such good stuff. I'm loving all of this. Okay. So I'd like to shift gears a bit and talk about Lava Atelier. Again, Meg, what a beautiful space you've created up there. I already sent the link to the Airbnb to my husband, and I said, as soon as we can possibly get a weekend away without the kids,
Yes.
this is where I want to go. And I'm in Pennsylvania, so you're a really nice drive across state up into the Catskills. And you did all of this. I can't wait for you to dive in, but you did all this during the pandemic. Not just grew your business, your high-end interiors business, but you also opened a shop, an Airbnb, and we're traveling globally to fill it. So tell me about all of it.
So I was a little bit of a maniac during the pandemic. And actually, you know what? Let's have a moment of honesty here, because I think it's really important to be candid of everything that happens behind the scenes. So people who are maybe learning about me and who are a few years behind, you can get the rose-colored glasses and not know everything that has gone on. But for years, I struggled with severe recurring depression, severe, crippling at times. And I found an amazing therapist right before the pandemic hit, actually. And the depression at a certain point lifted. And it was almost like I had energy that I had never seen from myself. I think I just didn't have this negative audio tape repeating in my head anymore. That kind of was like a wet blanket and holding me down. And I went after every brass ring that went by me during the pandemic. It all kind of aligned at the same time because, as we talked about, the industry was on fire, going through the most expansive point of the history of interior design and construction and architecture. But I just had some opportunities that came up, and we purchased a stone farmhouse that's so wonderful that sits on 40 acres up here in Delaware County in a little town called Franklin a few years before the pandemic. People thought we were nuts moving up here, but there's a quality of life and there's a peacefulness. And I'm such a nature person that it helps me feel more creative being up here. And then I come down to the city when I have client meetings or vendor meetings. So I get to toggle back and forth between the two. So we were up here, and what happened is that I was asked to design a space in the Kingston Design Connection show house during the pandemic, 2020, before we really knew what was going on. I think at that point, we still thought that we could get COVID from the cardboard Amazon boxes that were being delivered in the mail. There was so much uncertainty. But my depression was lifting because of this therapist I was working with and this technique she used called EMDR, which I responded to very positively. So my depression is lifting, and I get invited to design a room at the Kingston Design Connection show house in Kingston, New York, in the Hudson Valley. And I was petrified because I did not have confidence back then. I was still working on that. But I just said, you know what? What else am I doing? Let me just go for it. And I begged them to not give me the kitchen because the kitchen requires on-site labor, like the most of any other room. I was like, can I just have a bedroom? A bedroom's going to be easier for me. I live 2 hours away still. But they said, nope, you're going to do the kitchen. Well, I ended up spending nights in the show house because I would drive over there. I was installing drywall by myself at like 3 in the morning while I was spending the night in the show house to try to make it work. It was impossible to find contractors because either they were not working on projects because they were afraid of getting COVID, or they were slammed because our industry really started picking up at that time. So I installed drywall myself. I did the plaster finish in the kitchen myself. I had a piece of drywall snap off the top of the roof rack of my car because it was lightly snowing and a piece went flying in the air. I mean, I have stories from that. But I think that that experience, while the depression was lifting, just started to really anchor this sense of self-confidence in me because I realized that I could figure out how to get through it and how to do it myself. And it really kind of set things off for me in a positive direction. The opening day of the show house, a building in the little village of Franklin where I live now, half of it became available for sale. And I told my best friend about it because he's totally open to experiences just like I am and gets excited about these things. He was like, "We should buy it." I thought, "What?" He was like, he was joking around with me about like, "Okay, you just like design someone else's kitchen for free. Like you should do it for yourself and or for me or for someone." And so this building was for sale. And so I looked at it and I thought it's really cool, but because there are two owners, it has to be purchased as one. Well, next thing you know, Thanksgiving Day, and of course it's lockdown 2020. No one's having Thanksgiving with each other, right? So that day I wrote the business plan for this building to kind of proof out the idea of whether we should buy it. So I created like visual mood boards. I had a picture of the room and then an inspiration picture next to it of what that room could be. So I developed this whole story because this village is so small and really it's seasonal. It's still seasonal right now, but I'm working on creating something that is sustainable to be year round for a bunch of different businesses. So the dry laws were lifted here the year before. So I thought, okay, we need to have a restaurant with Franklin's first bar. So a place to eat and drink. We need a place to shop. So might as well open up a shop so I can feed my auction addiction that I have of collecting antiques and cool vintage items. Let's have an Airbnb loft above so you can stay here so we can promote tourism a little bit. So that's directly above the loft. I thought, well, we need a wellness center where we could do yoga. I love it selfishly. I love Pilates. So like we could have Pilates in this space. And then we need something else like a market or something else to round out this space. So I developed that master plan for the building and presented it to my best friend. And he said, "Well, do you think it's going to be a good investment?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so, because I know my work ethic at this point and I know I can make this work." So he said, "Great, let's buy it." So he's been the financial backer through this. And, we got a construction loan, but we just went for it. And he trusts me implicitly, which is so nice. So I've just been hustling up here doing what I've needed to do with the renovations. And it's not the pretty stuff. It's fixing all the MEP, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. It's putting in heat and it's putting in all new plumbing and taking things down to the studs because we found a loose wire that was live in the wall. So now we need to completely rewire the loft upstairs. So it's been a lot of the messy work, but it's been so rewarding and satisfying because this is a historic brick building. It was built in 1869. It's the only brick structure in town. It's 12,000 square feet. It has 2 storefronts, 2 apartments. It's a beast of a building, but I felt like I had the opportunity to come in and kind of give this building a second life while creating opportunities for local small businesses to then serve the community. But this building is my passion project for the weekend. So I have the shop in one of the storefronts, and that's seasonal weekends. I opened up last August, and we have limited hours. It's Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 3. I wish I could serve clients outside of those hours, and I tried to, and I was just spinning myself, and it wasn't working. So again, having boundaries and knowing what your limits are. And the weekdays are for my design business, and the weekends are for my shop and anything related to the building.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, for it being seasonal and weekends only, I mean, I've kind of watched the transformation on social media of you buying it to where it is now. And it's amazing. I love that, the whole focus is to kind of just bring this town back to life in a sense. And what a great validation, you guys buying that farmhouse, not really knowing that this was what was in store for you. I think that to look back at it retrospectively now, that's really amazing.
It's bananas because I didn't know what I was doing. But I'm like, what the hell am I doing up here in beautiful farmland? It's breathtaking. And what's so funny is that a few weeks ago, House Beautiful published an article that Yoko Ono just moved up here. Well, she's been up here all along. She and John Lennon bought a 600-acre farm right outside of the village here in the 70s. And they've been coming up here for years. And I guess Yoko's been up here for the last 5 years. But our neighbors who are third generation Franklinites said that, growing up, they would be at the gas station. And the gas station is tiny. It's like a tiny little village. We have 1 block of business district Main Street. I mean, it's tiny. So they'd be at the gas station right here pumping gas. And they look over and Yoko is there with her yellow convertible pumping her own gas. Like, what? Pretty amazing. So if it's good enough for Yoko, it's good enough for me.
Yes.
It's really beautiful though. And she has like songs and poems about Franklin Summers. That's about our town. So there's something magical about Franklin Summers. We have very long winters. So I think the summers here are really cherished, but how green it is here and how untouched it is, because it's a part of upstate New York where we're really not near a big city and we don't have a train, or it's not easy to get to New York City. So a lot of people have not come up here. And so it's that much more untouched.
Well, I plan on visiting, so I'll let you know when that happens.
I can't wait. Yes. Please come on a weekend because the shop will be open. I really get into the shop. Look, I design homes for my clients. I'm designing homes for them. That's a personal reflection of them and how they want to live. This shop and this building is for me. It's for me to play and explore and try new things and kind of be a reflection of who I am. I was a musician. I was a classical singer. I was also a percussionist. And so I have a really deep personal love of music. So I even curate a seasonal playlist for the shop. I always have my candle of the season too to go with it. So you're getting an experience when you come into the shop. So come visit on a weekend when the shop is open so you can really hang out and then stay in the loft above, which is it's so peaceful up there. And it's just a little bit of a getaway to be up in this beautiful loft with the tall ceilings and the wood paneled ceilings and the original skylight. You're going to love it.
Yeah, I already do. And I have it, and I'm just seeing photos of it, it's amazing. It's beautiful. I mean, everything you've done, all of that has crossed my mind too, like having the shop and curating it just for me. And I'm doing that a little bit more on an online space right now. And you mentioned you work with the seasons. I work with the elements found in Taoism as part of my feng shui process. So I'm kind of doing similar things. So it's really fascinating to watch. I'm sure you get it a lot. How are you doing it, Meg? Like, how are you? You're doing so much. I get that a lot too. I think it's just part of, our nature, especially as entrepreneurs and as women, just going for it. And so a big part of what I talk about through the podcast is just creating balance. And it sounds to me like Franklin is where you kind of tap back into your balanced state, your connection to nature, your creative energy comes from there. Is there anything else that you do on a personal level to kind of stay grounded and tapped in to keep pushing yourself forward?
Boundaries. Did we talk about that?
We did.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the theme of probably the title of this show. Boundaries
It's
And
funny
balance.
because you know what? I learned that in therapy, and that was part of my healing from depression is boundaries. I'm an introvert and I need to have boundaries in order for me to not feel depleted and drained. And multitasking doesn't exist, by the way. You're not really being productive and you're just spinning yourself up. Um, so really just focusing one thing at a time. Like this morning, because I was on the road for the last couple of days and client meetings, and I saw all of our clients this week and did shopping and site measures and everything. And I come back to my desk today with so many emails and so many action items after seeing my clients the last couple of days where I started feeling not grounded. And so this morning I said, okay, what I'm going to do is not look at my phone at all. And I'm going to methodically go through each step of this morning and be uber present. So I'm going to really be present when I'm brushing my teeth. I am going to make sure that all the clothes are put away before I leave the house today. And it seems counterintuitive because I have all this stuff that's going on and like all this catch up that I need to do. But by making myself slow down and be present, I was able to get that sense of grounding again. And breath work, I mean, that sounds a little bit more formal than what I've been doing lately, but just focusing on taking a few really deep breaths when I start to feel like things are getting out of control. And also being cognizant of the cadence of my tone and taking pauses in between words. Sometimes I'll have clients who are really revved up or who are really anxious. And so I give a pause before I start to speak and I'm present with them during that, little bit of chaos and allowing them that space to feel that chaos that they're feeling and then pause and responding instead of waiting to talk while they're talking, thinking about what I'm going to say. So it's little things like that that can affect my balance throughout the day. But if you get out of balance, if I get out of balance, then I feel like everything goes into a little bit of a state of chaos. And so it's important to, again, know yourself and to know what's going to work for you so you can be aware of when things start to go off the rails to get them back on track. And not every day is going to be perfect, but knowing how to get them back on track, for me, breathing, maybe meditation, maybe taking a walk in the back meadow, things like that. It's about knowing yourself and knowing what's going to work for you personally.
Well, I love catching up with you, but I've had a lot of your time and I really appreciate it. I just want to wrap up with what's next for you? You've done so much. Is it time for rest or what have you got something else coming up?
Right now, I feel like I've stabilized the businesses around me. And we are so overdue for our own house. We started demo on our own kitchen before the pandemic, and then all these opportunities came up, and we invested our funds, all of our funds, into everything else going around us because we saw it as an opportunity for substantial growth later. So we have been putting our own house on the back burner for a few years now. So it's time to put our own life back together.
Good for you. Good for you. That's important. Well, Meg, where can everyone find more about you and your brand, Lava? You have a whole brand now, Meg. Look at you.
Funny, I like to joke it's a lifestyle brand.
Yes.
But it kind of is in a sense. And so everything is under one umbrella to help me sleep at night. So everything's on lavainteriors.com. I do have a couple of different Instagram handles because they each have their own purpose. There's Lava Interiors, Lava Atelier, Lava Loft Franklin, which is the loft right above the shop, and then Lava House Franklin, which is the house down the street. So everything, and I'm trying to buy lava.com. But we'll just keep under Lava Interiors for now.
Well, I will put all that in the show notes for easy access for everyone. Thank you again for coming on. It was so great to catch up with you. I can't wait to see what you do next. Hopefully you'll share some pictures of your own kitchen renovation. See what you do with that.
I think I might have to show behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Because I think that kind of messy aspect can help demystify and unromanticize this whole process. So I think
Yes.
doing it with my own house, I'm okay to be that vulnerable at this point. So I might
Yeah.
have to do that.
Yeah. I'm for it. I think you should too. So thank you, Meg. So
Thank
great.
you. This has been so much fun, and I can't wait to have you up here and show you around.
Yes, for sure. All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, I think regardless of what industry you are in, I know a lot of you listening serve others in some capacity, whether you work for someone else or yourself. I think we all can take some of these tips and apply them to our clients' experience because leveling up our own processes only help us serve better. So my takeaway is systems plus processes equal boundaries. One realization I had after talking with Meg is that my own lack of boundaries in my business or even in my relationships is due to an underlying issue of people pleasing, and she totally called it out. Now, I have been doing the work, and I am well aware of my people pleasing origins, but listening back to my conversation with Meg, I realized where I still need to implement some changes, especially in my business. So if putting more boundaries in place is going to allow me to put an end to people pleasing, I am all in. Because look, we can still run successful businesses and offer amazing customer service experiences without sacrificing our mental load. Because if we are clear mentally, then we can be our best creatively, therefore serving our clients better. Please check out the links in the show notes. Be sure to follow Meg and the Lava brand on Instagram. Like I said in the show, just looking at her spaces creates such a sense of peace and calm. And let me know, how did this conversation resonate with you? Are boundaries something that you struggle with? Or have you had success in implementing them? Email me or tag me on Instagram. I love reposting and sharing listener insight there. You can find me at Jade Scott Design. Until next time, much love and gratitude.